I think we need to talk. Hi everyone, I'm Keksi from Keksi's Brick Builds with a new video about LEGO's new central train station. First of all, let me say this. I know that this is a playset for children aged 7 and up, and it's obviously a simple construction. To be honest, the review will be over in about 5 minutes. Now you're probably wondering why the video is over 25 minutes long. Well, that's because you will see. To keep the video from getting too boring, I also introduce other train stations and the dark red train you saw in the intro. And now let's go. So here it is, the new central train station from LEGO, set number 60469. The set was released in Europe on June 1st, 2025, which unfortunately was a Sunday, meaning that at least in Germany the stores were closed and I had to wait another day. In the United States and Canada, the set will be released today on August 1st. As already mentioned, the set is recommended for children aged 7 and up. It consists of a total of 752 pieces and is priced at $99.99 USD, €89.99 Euro and $119.99 Canadian. At least in the US, that's the same price as the last train station from 2022, but the set has over 150 fewer pieces than the last one. The set includes 6.5 minifigures with some nice accessories such as tools, a train ticket, coffee mug, a smartphone and a stroller. Another highlight is likely to be the new pigeon molds, and LEGO has included 2 of the new pigeons in the set. So let us take a closer look at the set. I have rendered a small speed build to give you a rough idea of the set's structure. It is a relatively airy construction, I hope airy is the right word for that what I want to say, and we will take a very close look at each part of the set. Let's start at the bottom with the platforms. There are 2 platforms on the left and right of the track. Each platform has a ramp for easy access for strollers and wheelchairs. The ramps are simply but attractively designed. If you look at the front of the station, you'll also find a small, simply constructed park bench on the left outside the platform. The slightly wider platform on the left has space for a cafe. At least that's what LEGO calls it. For me, it's more like a small coffee shop that sells exactly 1 croissant. Perfect French. Unfortunately, a lot of space has been wasted here. A few more details could have been added, especially under the roof. But we'll come back to that later. There's a small seating area on the upper floor above the cafe. The seats and table are very simple in design. Above them are a few plants to add a touch of color. There's also a painting or a picture of a locomotive hanging here. Judging by the colors, it is probably the Hogwarts Express. On the outside wall there is a sign pointing to the city tours. It is a subtle reference to the set 60407, the red double-decker sightseeing bus. I like it when the sets refer to each other. On the other side of the track is the second, narrower, but longer platform. At the end of the platform there's a light signal for incoming trains. There's also a covered modern seating area with a timetable. To the left of the timetable we find a ticket machine similar in color to the one from the 2024 tram set. The most interesting part and the only play feature of the set is the elevator integrated into the station building. A door marked "A staff only" leads to the elevator. There's a rotating knob on the roof above the elevator. I think it is supposed to represent a typical roof ventilation turbine. When you turn it, the warm gear below is moved, which allows the elevator to move up or down. Apart from the ground floor, the elevator only has one other stop, which leads to the station control room. And again, access is for employees only. In the control room we find a console and a large screen for monitoring the station's technology. There's also a swivel chair for the employee. I particularly like the small reference to the speed regulator from the 9-volt train era of the 90s. The small grey 2x2 round plate on the right is used to store the employees' crutches. By the way, the crutches are also brand new pieces from LEGO. The building is topped with a clock tower. The construction is relatively simple, but I like the use of the variously angled slopes to represent the spire. In addition to a little greenery on the roof, we find the nest of the 2 pigeons inside the clock tower. The sunflower mold in reddish brown is used for the nest. Not to be forgotten is the small rail vehicle included in the set. As you can see in the speed build, this is also a very simple construction. Once again, it is a maintenance rail car with a cherry picker for high-level repairs. And with that, we are slowly coming to the end. As with every station set in recent years, this one also includes 2 track ramps to make it easy to put a train on the tracks. In addition to the ramps, there are 2 straight track sections, and that's all the track included in the set. For the sake of completeness, I will briefly show you all 9 stickers included in the set. So here we are after about 4 minutes, and that's pretty much everything there is to say about the set. But as you know me, I might have a thing or 2 more to say, and I'll do that right away. But first, I'd like to introduce you to the train I used in the intro. This Intercity Express train was a submission for one of this year's voting rounds of the Bricklink Designer program. It's a real shame that the set didn't make it into the top 5, because for me it would definitely have been a must-buy. Not wanting to give up, I contacted the designer and he gave me the permission to show the model. First, we see the locomotive or engine car. The entire sidewalls are built using SNOT techniques, which allows easy access to the interiors of the individual cars. The engine car features a cockpit, the engine compartment and a conductor's room. Next, we see the passenger car. Here too, the roof and side panels are removable. The passenger car has a divided compartment for first and second class and a luggage rack. And finally, the cab car with another cockpit and an on-board restaurant complete with a snack bar and of course a coffee machine. Overall, I think the train is wonderfully designed. With dark red as the main color, the designer had hit exactly my taste. Some of you may know that I have already built the Thalys train in the same color. Unfortunately, there are no instructions available on rebrickable.com yet, as the designer still wants to make improvements to the current model. Perhaps he will submit it to the Bricklink Designer program again in the near future. If you are interested, just follow his profile on Reddit. I have linked the profile below in the video description. Now let's take a look at the problems. Some of them are minor, but a few are quite significant. I actually like the basic design choice. I like the combination of an old building with columns, arches and a clock tower with a modern elevator shaft. The fact that there are platforms on the left and right of the tracks is also a good choice, as we haven't seen that in a LEGO train station for a long time. But I see a problem with this set. To explain this, I need to talk about the newer LEGO City sets in general. In the past, LEGO City sets were almost exclusively open at the back, and you had a good chance of setting up the set in your city in such a way that you didn't necessarily see the open side. In recent years, however, the trend has been to leave at least 2 sides open, which makes it more difficult to set up the buildings. I'm sure many people don't care, but personally, it bothers me a lot. We have even reached a point where there are buildings without roofs, or even with only half walls and without roofs. For over 40 years, train stations were always open at the back and stood perpendicular to the tracks, meaning that the tracks ran from left to right in front of the station, as you can see here in the pictures of older stations. Even the large Disney station was like that. At the new station, the track now runs from the back to the front through the station. Basically a new idea, but the station is open at the back, and it is now much more difficult for me to position it so that you can see that. The next problem is obvious and probably the one that bothers me the most and about which I have a lot to say. The platforms. Pretty much everything about them is wrong. Let's start with the length. Dear LEGO, in the 80s you released train sets that included longer platforms than this set. Why are the platforms at the central station, I have to say it again, central train station, so short? Have you ever seen the main station before? Dear designers at LEGO, let me show you something. Here's the last passenger train you designed. Do you notice anything? Correct, the platforms are slightly too short. I've corrected that for you. I know it looks ridiculous, and yes, I exaggerated on purpose, but shouldn't the platforms be at least as long as a carriage on this passenger train, rather than just as wide as a double door? Well, I'll just keep dreaming. But not only are the platforms far too short, for some inexplicable reason they are also different length. And why can't I change platforms? I realized that there's no room for a pedestrian bridge with such short platforms, but at least a normal crossing. Enough about the length, let's talk about the height of the platforms. To illustrate the problem with the height, I have to go into a little more detail. I'm really sorry, but I got carried away while making this video. To be honest, this isn't a problem specific to this station, but something that has developed over decades. I will show you various stations from the last few decades alongside one of the more recent passenger trains. Since the stations are difficult to recognize from the side, I have shown you the set again from the front in the upper left corner. This is a station from the 12-volt era. As you can see, the distance between the platform and the train is relatively small and the height is almost the same, just as it should be. At the next train station, the platform is already one brick lower and the gap between the platform and the train is 2 studs wide. And one station further on, the height of the platform hasn't changed, but the gap is already 3 studs wide. Have fun trying to get a wheelchair across the gap. The same applies to the station in 2022. Jumping in or out of the train seems to be the only solution here. And now to the new central train station. The gap has narrowed to 2 studs again, but the platform is now 2 bricks lower than at the first station. I'll change the perspective here and show you this from the side. Let's start with the current passenger train. Since split-level train bases were used for the passenger cars of the new passenger train, the doors are 1 brick lower than on previous trains. But you can still clearly see that the height difference between the door and the platform is simply too big. The only 2 trains for which this station is really suitable are the City Tram from 2024 and the small tram from the new City Tower set from 2025. Here it is possible to board the train at almost the same height. Unfortunately, it is difficult to motorize both models without compromising their appearance. I hope that the future does not mean that we will get flat, non-motorized trains from LEGO so that they fit the height of the platforms. Let's make one last change of perspective. Let's look at the disaster from the platform and add a minifigure. Let's try to board the iconic Metroliner. As you can easily see, the bottom edge of the door is at the height of the minifigure's neck. Imagine having to climb into a carriage like this at a station. The same applies to the passenger train from 2018. However, this is not a problem here as the train has no doors at all. No doors, no need for station. It's that simple. And once again, the passenger train from 2022. The bottom edge of the door is now at hip height. Still no fun climbing into the train like that. And as shown before, here again are the only 2 train-like vehicles that are actually suitable for this station in terms of height. Okay, I think I've said everything I can think of on the subject of platforms. Maybe that's just my opinion, so let me know what you think of the platforms in the comments. By the way, while you're in the comments, why not leave a sub and a like? That would help the channel and my motivation to make new videos. Okay, let's focus on the other problems. The next, really minor problem is the missing side windows at the elevator shaft. LEGO could definitely have included them, as you can't reach inside anyway due to the worm gears. I would really like it if there were also windows in the frames at the rear, but of course that doesn't make much sense in terms of playability. As I said, not a big problem. And then a designer at LEGO had the idea of including a classic European station concourse. As an example, I'll show you the Cologne Central Station next to the famous Cologne Cathedral in Germany. Unfortunately, as the new station building is only about 8 studs deep, as usual, the idea of this roof doesn't work at all. The garage roller door parts are unfortunately not centered. I have changed the color of the arches underneath so you can see that the roof is not centered, which makes connecting further arches of this type not impossible, but complicated and more expensive. I will show you something else about this later. Next problem, the coffee shop. Why is the coffee shop located here? When you look at it from above, you can see that it is only partially under the roof. That means a lot of fun when it rains. And it's not even necessary because there's plenty of unused space behind the counter. They could have moved the counter back and added more seating for guests in front of it, also under the roof. That would have freed up more space on the platform for other things. Wait, I have another crazy idea. How about selling more than just one croissant? Perfect French again. There's so much space under the roof, a refrigerator with drinks and a shelf with cookies and donuts would have easily fit in there. And now let's really go all out and turn the whole thing into a closed shop. Just add a few windows on the sides, install a completely closed back wall and close the front accordingly. In this case I designed the back wall to be removable and voila, French, a nice shop is ready. And then we have this tiny maintenance rail car. Unfortunately, I think it's the ugliest rail vehicle ever included in a LEGO set. Why not just add a small train or another single car to the current passenger train? I quickly put something together for you. The train isn't really nice and is only meant to serve as an illustration. In my opinion, the set without the train is already far too expensive. Increase the price by 20 USD and add a small train and I'm sure more people would be interested in this set. Even if a small train from LEGO would probably look more like this, but it's better than nothing. So what do you think about this? Do you also believe that a small train or an additional carriage would make people more willing to buy it? In my case, definitely. Let me know your opinion in the comments. So now we are almost done with the things I find annoying. There are only two more minor points. Some of you have probably wondered why the two long 2x16 plates are attached to the back. Obviously for stability reasons, as this part of the building is relatively unstable. Unfortunately, the two plates don't help much. If you touch it in the wrong place, the whole side structure falls apart. I think a solution with Technic bricks would have been better. The last one doesn't bother me much. Unnecessary Technic bricks were used on both sides, which actually make no sense. Another YouTuber named Flash, if anyone knows him, claimed that it's ideal for connecting to other LEGO city sets, but honestly, I don't know of any city sets that connect with Technic pins. And if they do, then they're not even connecting in those places. So at my station, I replaced these Technic bricks with regular bricks. And that concludes the things that bother me about the set. As I said, I'm aware that this is a playset for children, and I'm judging it from an adult perspective. Of course you're welcome to disagree and I'm open to discussion. I'm simply expressing my opinion here and want to suggest some ideas for how the set could be improved. And that brings us to the final part of my video. What the set could have looked like and what alternatives are there. I think we can all agree that this station is merely an 8-star deep facade. Unfortunately, it lacks the one thing that makes a station concourse. I then considered how much more this station would need to be in order to be considered a worthy station, at least in the LEGO City world. And this is what I came up with. I extended the station roof, which was only hinted at the original, towards the rear and mirrored part of it to create a proper station concourse. You can see various stages of construction here as I kept coming up with more ideas for enlarging the station. Here you can already see the significantly extended and now tiled platforms. I thought about what you usually find in a station and added some more small buildings. Here, for example, a public telephone booth and a flower shop on the opposite side. A public toilet is also a must in any station. I also moved the coffee shop under the roof and increased the range of goods on offer. I also added the missing staircase to the coffee shop seating area and created additional seating from where you can watch the hustle and bustle of the station. Of course, I wasn't finished yet, but as we all know, the best comes last. In the meantime, I explored other ideas and picked out a train station from 1991. The idea was to use the color scheme of the new station, replace old LEGO parts that are no longer available, and carry out a few modernizations. So I started playing around with the colors, as you can see here, and then replaced the molded platform parts with normal plates. I changed the doors, railings and windows, and then decorated the platform with a few items from the current station, such as the ticket machine and the timetable. Finally, I rounded off the main roof a little. The final idea was to transform the two side wings of the station into modern buildings. Unfortunately, the interior isn't finished yet, so I can't show it to you. But at least there is a platform long enough for both passenger cars to be boarded at the same time. Since this video is about train stations, I have to show you a very special creation today. A train station worthy of the name Central Train Station. You already saw the station in the background after the intro. It was created by the German MOC designer Felix. I'm pretty sure this is the most detailed train station I've ever seen. Here you can see the different floors of the building, and we'll take a closer look at the individual floors and rooms in a moment. The designer has included a lot of interesting details here. The train entrance to the station is also interesting. The tracks lead over a road and a sidewalk through archways into the station hall. There are a few seating areas at the ground floor, a ticket counter and, of course, timetables. There's also a newsagent's or bookshop, which also sells audio recordings. Here too the designer paid great attention to detail. Of course, there are also restrooms with washrooms on the ground floor and, as expected, separate ones for men and women. On the floor above there's a large restaurant with plenty of seating and a superbly equipped kitchen that lacks nothing. The pedestrian crossing to reach the individual platforms is also nicely designed and offers an excellent view of both tracks through a window. Finally, this station also features a small police station with an uncomfortable detention cell. All in all, this station is a unique construction. I asked the designer 2 years ago if I could make a video about this station, but unfortunately I never got around to it. Thanks to the video about the current LEGO station, I finally had the opportunity to present this station. If you're interested in the station, you can find the instructions on Felix's Rebrickable page. You can find the link below in the video description. After a creative break and much deliberation, I got back to the mock of the new LEGO train station. And, how can I say it? It escalated quickly. Actually, a large central train station has many tracks. Since such a construction is almost impossible with LEGO, I stuck with 2 tracks. I think it might be possible to integrate a 3rd track, but 2 are enough for me for now. The most important thing for me was to create the largest roof possible over the tracks and to ensure that a train could fit almost its entire length underneath. I integrated the existing buildings such as the flower shop and the restroom into the sidewall structure. I actually wanted to add a newsstand as well, but I couldn't find a good spot. I would have to do some major remodeling for that. I doubled the size of the control room above the tracks, and to keep it from sitting empty, I added a few switches for the points. There's also a coffee machine for the boss up there. And that concludes the slightly expanded LEGO train station for now. I'll probably make a few adjustments in the future, but overall I'm quite satisfied. If you share my opinion about the station, then you should also check out the following modification. The designer Brick Artisan is known for creating excellent and unique modifications to well-known LEGO sets. I've been following him for several years, and I'm always amazed at how creatively people can rebuild LEGO sets. In this case, he laid the tracks across the back of the station and placed the station building in the foreground. By omitting the tunnel, the focus is on the front of the station. The rear is a little lacking in detail, but that's because the designer tried to use as many parts from the original set as possible and as few additional parts as possible. All important rooms and facilities, such as the control room, the coffee shop and the elevator, are included just like in the original set. With only 247 additional parts, Brick Artisan has created many additional details, and the station is also completely sealed. I had previously criticized the simple back, but Brick Artisan made the back walls removable so that the building can also be played with from behind. I think that's the reason why the back weren't built with much detail. I quickly created some more attractive back walls with a few extra pieces, simply to show that you can easily create something with your own creativity. So if you want to transform the set into a significantly better version without much effort, then the Brick Artisan model is exactly what you need. I contacted him and asked if I could feature his model in this video. He was thrilled and sent me his model for the video. He also sent me a few pictures of the station embedded among his other designs. You should definitely check out his page on Rebrickable. He has some really first-class models at a fair price. You can also find the link below in the video description. Okay my friends, that really turned out to be a very long video. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. The question is, how will I continue? Unfortunately, there are no new train sets on the market, so I looked through my old videos a bit And I'm pretty sure many of you know the video about my improved version of the 2018 passenger train. I made a detailed video about it and it has been viewed almost 150,000 times. So I decided it might be a good idea to show you how I rebuilt the 2018 freight train. The train is being discontinued at the end of the year and perhaps you'd like to take the opportunity to build a modified version of it. Another option would be to show you my modification of the 60051 passenger train. This is the longest train I've ever built and it includes many improvements compared to the original. As a final option, I could present you my extended and color-changed version of the current passenger train. I was able to make many improvements here as well. So just write your choice in the comments with the hashtag A, B or C. Of course, any other ideas are welcome too. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, see you, take care, bye bye.